Okay, so the program should read the values from the withdrawals file and use the object method to subtract them from the account balance. We've done that. So now we're here. Think about it. We've tackled all of this here, right? That's how I like to tackle problems. Okay, I read it first, okay, to know the different individual pieces, and we go through it. At times you may have to do something, later on, but for the most part, guidance questions are very nice. All right. Okay, so they are clear. I think they are clear enough for you to have at least an understanding of how to solve the question. Okay, so the program should call the class method to calculate the monthly interest. Now think about it. For the previous question, there were individual payments. There were individual deposits and withdrawals every month, right? But over here in this question, it wasn't too clear. I think it's although I said guidance questions are clear. For the most part, guidance questions are clear, but sometimes it's not too clear with some details, not the whole thing, right? You read the question, you have an idea sort of, but then sometimes you don't know how to interpret the individual pieces. But for the most part, guidance questions are clear. All right, so don't get me wrong here. All right, so the program should call the class method to calculate the monthly interest. I don't think these are individual monthly interest. These are all the deposits made in a month. These are all the withdrawals made in a month, because it tells you over here it tells you the numbers in the Deposits.txt file are the amounts of deposits that were made to a savings account during the month. So I'm guessing these are all the deposits in 1 month, and these were all the withdrawals in that same month, right? So we are dealing with only 1 month here. Okay, we're dealing with only 1 month here. So after these have been added and subtracted from the balance, we'll have a value left, and on that value we want to go ahead and calculate just the monthly interest on that value, right? And we have a method for doing that, right? It first divides the annual interest rate by 12 to get the monthly interest rate, and we find that percentage, that monthly interest rate percentage of the balance, right? And that's going to be our monthly interest, and we add that to the balance. When we add that to the balance, we also want to return it, so we can we can get the value here in our new program here. So let's go ahead and do that. We can go ahead. Okay, we can say account 1 dot, it's actually add monthly interest, right? It's add monthly interest. Let's just go ahead and copy it just so I don't make any mistakes. So it's add monthly interest, and we know that add monthly interest is going to basically calculate the monthly interest of this account. Well, we also did one more thing. We didn't do one more thing. Okay, so that's important. I just realized that this class, savings account class, also needs the annual interest rate. Now the question didn't say anywhere annual interest rate. So again, I said guidance questions are clear, but like I said, for the most part it's clear. But it didn't specify the annual interest rate. I can't see that anywhere in the question. So we have to create one. We have to come up with one, right? I'm guessing maybe he wants us to use from the previous question. I don't know. But as you can see, the constructor only allowed us to type in the 500 starting balance, right? So as of now, this object has only the starting balance. The annual interest rate is set to 0, which is not good. So we can set it, right? We didn't create anywhere in the constructor to initialize that value or that field of annual interest rate. But we created a setter. We created a mutator to set that value. And we can see that it's here. Set annual interest rate. It takes in a new rate, right? And it divides it by 100. So if the user types in, let's say 2, it's not going to say 2 is the interest rate, right? We want to divide by 100 to get 0. If the user types in 2, we want to divide by 100 to get 0.02, and that represents 2%. And then that stores it in our annual interest rate field. So let's just do that. Let's set our annual interest rate after we've set our starting balance. So let's call account 1 dot set annual interest rate, right? I think let's just confirm. Copy actually. Set annual interest rate. And set annual interest rate accepting the annual interest rate. So I'm going to type in, let's say, 10%, right? So it's going to take in 10% divided by 100, and that's going to be 0.1. So that's 10%. So account 1.add monthly interest is going to calculate the monthly interest on the current balance after all the deposits and withdrawals, and then add it to, and then basically find the monthly interest on that amount, And then, well wait. This is not going to actually do the withdrawals, do the withdrawals and deposits. This is just basically finding the monthly interest on that balance that's left. So this program right now is going to read from the deposits and withdrawals file, do all the subtraction and addition. Okay, meaning I subtract all the withdrawals and add all the deposits, and then add monthly interest is going to calculate the monthly interest on whatever is left, right? And then it's going to add that balance, add that amount to the balance. So it's adding that monthly interest to the balance, and then it's also going to return that amount or that value. The way we design it, we also design it to return that monthly interest, so we can keep track of it also in main, because we don't have any field here to keep track of the total monthly interest. That's not how the previous question was asked. So in that case, then we need to accept it, because over here the question said that the program should call the class method to calculate the monthly interest, right? Which we've just done here, and then display the ending balance and the total interest end. So we need a place to keep track of our total interest end. We need a place to store our total interest end. We know that this method is also returning the monthly interest. In this case, since we are only finding the monthly interest on only one amount, one balance, you can think of it as 1 month, we're only going to get one, interest, and that's going to be our total interest end, right? So let's go ahead and create a variable, call it total interest end, right? It's going to be a double, because think about it, it's going to be an interest value, a money amount, which is, let's say, 2 point something. It can be 2 point something, it can be $3.50, $3.50, something. It can be a double amount. So let's create a double value and call it total interest earned, right? So total interest earned, and let's set it to 0 initially, because initially our total interest earned is 0. So we know this method is going to return it. So now total interest earned, it's going to accept that value, and that's going to be a total interest earned pretty much, right? We only calculating the total interest earned for 1 month, right? Or the interest earned for 1 month, right? Or for one value. So there's no need for any loop here or anything. But if the question, if you find out that from your professor or from your own interpretation that these values were monthly, because think about it, then you can create a loop that does that. You can represent these 4 values as 4 months, and you can represent these 5 values as 5 months. You can do that, right? You can create a loop that does that. But then again, you can create a loop that basically works with both of them, individually or separately. You can work with it, okay? But I don't think so. I think these were all the deposits made in a month, all the withdrawals made in a month. So in this case, that's what will be the correct thing. So we'll have our total interest earned here, and then for our balance, because it says, and then display the ending balance and the total interest earned. For our total interest earned, we already have it here. For our balance, ending balance, all we have to do is just get the balance from the class, from the object. In the class, we defined an accessor or a getter, which is get balance. That just returns the balance, right? So now all we have to do is just go ahead and print the details, right? So we can just use a regular system that out the print f, okay? Print f, which is going to print f because we want to go ahead and format it a little bit, right? So I'll talk about that here. So printf takes in 2 arguments. First is how you want it formatted, and then the second argument here is one or more values or one or more variables. So basically, one or more arguments that correspond to this, correspond to the placeholders or format specifies in the format string. So basically, I'm going to create a format string and then basically include placeholders, right? And the values that I type in here as a second set of arguments or second argument, they are going to replace the format specifies in the format string. So let me just go ahead and I'll explain as I go. So the first thing I want to display is our ending balance, right? So we can just say ending balance colon, and this is I'm going to go ahead and create a placeholder. I'm going to type in %f for now. So %f is a placeholder, right? It's a format specifier. I'm saying that a floating point. F stands for float, right? A floating point value is going to replace this whole thing here, this percentage F. It's a placeholder, right? What is going to replace it is what I'm going to type in here, the value I'm going to type in here. Okay, so that's the first placeholder. So the first argument I type in here will replace this. Okay, they are respective. Okay, so I'm saying value will replace this, and ending balance is going to be that, right? And then after that, I want to move on to the next line. So I'm going to type in a new line character, \n. Now \n is an escape character, and then so this is not printed, but when the interpreter sees this, right, it moves the position from where it's at to the next line, and anything that comes after this \n is displayed on that next line. So after displaying this whole ending balance here with the value, it sees this \n and moves to the next line. So anything that comes after this will be displayed on that next line. So after that, we want to go ahead and display our total interest end. So total interest end. Okay, it's also going to be a floating point value, right? Sorry, percentage F. So meaning another floating point value is going to replace this. All right, so now let's deal with the arguments that are going to replace these format specifiers. The first floating point, or the first placeholder we have here, or the first format specifier we have here, is for the ending balance, right? And we know the ending balance, all we have to do is just basically call the get balance method, or the get balance accessor. So we can say account1 dot get balance. Now the argument or arguments you specify here replace these format specifiers or placeholders respectively. So the first argument I specify here, okay, replaces the first format specifier or the first placeholder, and then the second argument I specify here replaces the second argument, the second format specifier or placeholder respectively. So they are respective, right? And they follow that order. So the second argument I'm going to pass in here is going to replace this, and this is our total interest earned, and we have it stored here. So I can just copy this and then paste it here. All right. So now we're done, right? But then we are not done formatting this, right? This get balance is going to replace this, but it's going to be formatted as a regular floating point value. Let's look at how it's displayed so far, right? Before we format it. So I'm going to go ahead and compile this, and I'm going to save it in the same folder as deposits and withdrawals and withdrawal files .java. If I don't type in .java, Dr. Java actually puts it there for me, or you can also go ahead and type in .java yourself. So I'm going to save this, and we have a couple of errors. Let's fix that first. So over here it says, let's see, unreported exception java.io file not found exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. All right. Okay, so over here we said that, okay, create a scanner, right? And then this is a source. Read from this file. Okay, so what if this file is not found? It's possible that this file, is deleted, or it's not saved. That doesn't even exist, right? So right now we don't have any code to handle that. We don't have any code to say, okay, if something bad happens, use this code to handle that, or provide some kind of message to the user, or something like a fallback, right? We don't have any code to handle that error if it happens. Now we haven't talked about exceptions yet, right? Chapter 6 doesn't talk about exceptions, at all. Exceptions are it's all the way in, like it's in a later chapter. So we don't have any way to handle this until we learn about exceptions. So what we are so there's a way to tell. Okay, so since we haven't learned how to handle our own exceptions, how to handle these errors, right? We can tell the program to say, okay, we can tell the program to say, okay, we can report and say, okay, this method has code in here, in this case this code, that has the potential to cause an error. So in that case, when it happens, please handle it for us until we learn how to handle code ourselves. So you can report to this method, because this code actually sits in this method, this main method. You can report to this method and say, okay, this method has the potential to throw this kind or this type of error. So we can say this main method, it throws an IO exception. We are saying, hey, program or interpreter, this main method has the potential to throw an IO exception. So when it happens, okay, this is throws, okay, throws. So we're saying the main method throws IO exception. So we're saying when this potential error here happens, please handle it for us until we find out how to handle our exceptions ourselves. Okay, that's all we are saying. Now you have to go out and report it on the method header, that the code that has the potential to cause an error sits in. Another thing also is, if for example we had another method here, right? Assuming we had a method, let's say a custom method that had this code, the code that has the potential to cause an error. Even if the main method didn't have any code that has the potential to cause an error, just because the main method has a method that has code that has the potential to cause an error, just because that method sits in the main method, okay, you have to specify, report to the program that method which sits in the main method, okay, has the potential to throw an error exception. You have to tell it. But because that method also sits in the main method, you also have to report to the main method that, hey, this method also has potential to throw an error exception. You have to report to both methods, right? If the method sits in a method, reports to the inner method and the outer method, because the outer method, although it doesn't have necessarily the code that has potential to cause an error, it has a method that has code inside that has potential to cause an error, right? So that's the idea. So that's what we're doing now. We're saying, okay, handle it for us because we haven't learned it yet, but when we do, we will handle it ourselves. So that's all we're doing. We're reporting it. So when it does, handle it for us. So now let's compile this and we're done. Okay, so let's run this to see. Remember, we haven't formatted it yet, so let's see how it's going to look like. So run. Oops, we have another error. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so that's an example of what I was talking about, right? So this file wasn't found, so it's telling us that there's no file found. Right now we're not really handling it, right? You're just reporting. We have to report to the program where there's code, or whether it's a code that has the potential to cause an error. We have to report it for the program to run or for the program to work. All right, otherwise it wouldn't know, so that's what we did here. So at least the program is running, but we haven't really created code to handle exceptions. So it's telling us withdrawals file.txt doesn't exist. How did you save the file? If we open the folder, you can see that we named it as withdrawals. Okay, withdrawals. I think withdrawals.txt. Let's see how we named it here. Oops. We said withdrawals file. There's nothing like withdrawals file. It's withdrawals.txt. So that's why. So now when I compile this, it runs. When I run it, we can see that it's giving us the value, right? So let's see if this is correct. Well, first of all, let's format it before we check. So 615, we can see it has so many decimal places. That's how a floating point number is pretty much displayed, right? So we have to format it. We can format this to 2 decimal places, right? So the way you do that is you put in the precision in between the percentage and then the F, so 0.2, meaning I want to format this number to 2 decimal places. Okay, in between the percentage and then the F. Okay, so if I wanted to format it to 3 decimal places, I would say 0.3. Now I want to format it to 2 decimal places, I would say 0.2. Also, I want a $sign in front of that number, of that value, so I put a $sign there. Also, I want it to display it with commas, right? If the number is $1 million, I want to see it as 1,000,000,000. So I can put a comma here in front of the position and in front of the type, okay? And it's going to automatically put commas where necessary. It's going to know where to put the commas where necessary. After every 3 zeros, it's going to put comma. It's going to do that automatically, right? But you have to put it before the precision and before the type, right? And that's all in between the percentage and then the F. The $sign goes before the percentage. So we can run it and just see it, right? Just for the first value. That's just for the account balance. And we can see that account balance is formatted nicely. 2 decimal places, a $sign. Well, it's not really 1,000 or anything, so there's no comma. All right, so let's do the same thing for the other one. Let's go ahead and make a copy of this all the way to F, and it replaces pretty much the same thing. And then compile this and then run, and then now we have good looking values. Now let's compare these values and see if it's correct. All right, so let me just pull up my calculator really quickly. All right. Okay, so starting balance was $500, right? So $500, and then we made deposits of $100, so plus $100, and then plus $124, plus $78, 29.92 plus 37.55, right? So that's where it got to. And then we made some withdrawals too. So minus 29.88 minus 110 minus 27.52 minus 50.00 and then minus 12.90. And then I hit equal, we get 610.17, right? All right, so now this is the balance before we found the monthly interest, right? So now let's go ahead and find the monthly interest on this. Well, we said the percentage was 10%, right? This is the annual interest rate. So first of all, let's just keep track of this number. 610.17. Let's just make a copy here. 610.17. Okay, so first of all, we need to figure out the monthly interest rate. We said the annual interest rate is what? 10%. So that's 10 divided by 100. So this is the annual interest rate. To find the monthly interest rate is 0.1 divided by 12. Okay, 12 months. And this is our monthly interest rate. Now we have to find the monthly interest rate of the amount that's left, which is 610.17. So we can find this percentage off. You can read the multiplication sign as off. So this percentage times this amount, 610.17. And that gives you $5.08, right? When you round this, you get 5.08. And that's what we got here as the total interest earned. Now this 5.08 was added to the 610.17 to get the ending balance. You can see it's 615.25. You can see that here. So this is accurate and this is correct. All right. So we're done. Okay, so if you have any questions, please comment down below and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourself as always. And I'll see you next time with the next program. All right. Bye-bye.